Thank you, Abraham. So I have a question for you regarding expectation and our perspective. And I heard you mention that lately, that the expectation and perspective is our point of attraction. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
We like the word expectation because expectation it combines desire and belief. So it is a very descriptive word of what your point of attraction actually is. If you want something and you expect it, there's no resistance. If you want something and you don't expect it, then there is resistance. In other words, want to go further?
Sometimes I'm curious about things that I pick up on, like a thought or something when I think of someone. Recently, I thought of somebody who's coming to teach a yoga workshop here, and I thought of him, and I thought of a friend of mine, and I said, I wonder if Molly's actually ever heard of him before. And then next thing you know, I looked on Facebook, and he was coming here, and I'm like, well, what is that coming up? Is that my expectation?
Well, did you hear us talking earlier about carving out these thought pathways? The most important thing to understand about creation is that it is all about point of attraction. And point of attraction is all about what you're asking for and what you're letting in or not. So many people ask for things that they don't let in. They don't even know that they're doing it because those thoughts feel sort of normal. The thought is so familiar that in a thought sense, it doesn't seem off. It's only when you begin to use your emotional guidance system that you can feel that it is off. So we're talking a lot these days about the thought pathways that your thoughts carve out. You've been carving out thoughts and your inner being has been receiving them and setting things in motion. But the thing is, you continue to carve out thoughts which then help you to let in what's lined up for you or not. You can think a thought and therefore offer a vibration that dictates what happens next. And you want to know how literally the universe responds to you. Well, big time literally. You get what you think about. Sometimes you say, oh, I must be psychic. Well, it doesn't matter what you call it. If you get tuned into your inner being, you can feel sometimes what is on its way to you. People say, well, I had a premonition about this, or I had that thought and then it happened. What's up with that? Well, it's no big, amazing thing. It's that you carved out a thought pathway, and it's pretty obvious that thoughts like that are going to come down the pathway that you've carved out. So first thoughts come, and then words come, and then other people come, other people that think those thoughts come, other people that think those thoughts and say those words come. That's what the thought pathways are about. The law of attraction is consistent, and once you start paying attention to what you're doing, then you have more control of your point of attraction. Yes? So now bring us back around to where you are.
Recently, my grandfather made his transition, and I went up to Canada for the Celebration of Life service, and I know that he's here right now, non-physical, with us, and he is in an amazing space. And I was up there with my family, and I was finding it very hard to have my own experience in the moment and wondering how I was causing all this stuff from my point of attraction.
Rather than saying all this stuff that I'm causing from my point of attraction, instead say something more like, I'm rendezvousing with a lot of things, and my response to what I'm rendezvousing with is carving out the next path and the next path and the next path. Esther really thought that she was being very light about her bumps on her Cadillac's nose. And she was mostly light, especially when there were people there. People that she didn't want them to worry, people that she wanted to set a good example for, especially the man who felt so bad when his card rolled out of gear and bumped it. She really wanted to soothe him. She did. She wanted to soothe him. But was she thinking otherwise? Another trip down there, another loaner car. And it is not easy not to react to life. And what deliberate creation is deliberate reaction to life. It's not putting yourself in a corner or a cave or a hole where things can't get to you. It's not getting in a protective stance. It's not even discontinuing watching television or discontinuing going to movies or discontinuing getting out there where people are. It's setting the tone of how you want to feel often enough and reaching for satisfying thoughts in those moments that you do have control that sets the pace for what comes next and next and next. Really what we're talking about in all the hours that we are together with you and those like you is how to prepare yourself vibrationally for the best things coming through your pathways. And so, yes, it is of value when you get a result to contemplate how that came about, but don't spend too much time doing that. Just start right with the laws as you know them to be. I have attracted this, and there are reasons that I have, and those reasons are going to become more evident to me, and I'm going to work the bugs out of them in moments in time when I have more creative control. The truth of it is, in those 3 examples that we offered about Esther's bumping or being bumped, is that there was nothing serious going on. Nothing big happened. It was at most inconvenient, or at most slightly amusing. It's amusing. It's amusing when you think about how cooperative the universe is. How cooperative the universe is. And when you are fine-tuning, don't you want to get good at this? Don't you want to understand? Esther can't live with less than creative control now that she knows creative control is possible. Esther doesn't want to be sloppy in her thinking. She doesn't want to just think about this and that and that. She doesn't want to be part of the masses who are carving out thought pathways to things unwanted. She's very fast with the mute button. She mutes the television when commercials come on that she does not believe are advantageous to the world. And yet even her muting is a sort of sign of defiance against something. You got to figure it out, and you're all doing really well, and your life experience that's coming to you is way better than it is not good. There's so many things that are working, but clean it up, clean it up, clean it up, clean it up, clean it up. Release resistance, release resistance, release resistance, which mostly means don't give so much thought to so many things. You just don't have to. You could start with this very powerful, truthful, simple premise. My vortex is full of what I want, and my inner being knows where I am in relationship to all of it and is guiding me toward it. And all I have to do is do my best in more moments of the day of feeling satisfied and feeling as good as I can feel. And when I find myself getting on a tangent or getting on a soapbox or pushing hard against something, I just got to know I'm not doing any good for anyone, and especially for me. I'm setting up a path of more resistance, which is going to show up. And I'm going to complain about it, and I'm going to protest law of attraction, and I'm going to say, I don't see how I was part of that. But anything that you observe, anything you witness, anything you experience, you are a vibrational part of. And if you had not carved out a path to it, you would not be. Well, it's logical. You watch lots of things. You're thinking about lots of things. We're just encouraging you to think more about the things that you really care about, and we are encouraging you to think more about the things that you have control over the way you think about them. When Esther thinks about her grandson Luke or her granddaughter Kate, it is nearly impossible for her to have less than a satisfying thought about them. Partly because she's practiced that over time, partly because they are extremely lovable, but partly because she has a thought pathway that makes those the most logical thoughts that she's going to think. If the subject of them comes up, that's where she goes. Just like water runs downhill, not uphill. Well, you carve out these thought pathways that your thoughts roll in the direction of whatever pathway you've carved out. And that is what expectation is. Expectation is the thoughts I usually think, and then the results of the thoughts that I usually think, and then my observation of the results of the thoughts that I usually think, and therefore the cementing in of the belief that I have about this or that. And so you got to be willing to admit that you've got beliefs about things that aren't serving you. And then the next thing that most humans say, yes, but those beliefs are valid because they're happening out there in the world. And we say, what's that got to do with anything? You're saying there are things happening in the world that you don't want, and so you're just carving out more thought pathways to them so that you can witness more of them and participate in more of them. What's the logic in that? Well, I'm a masochist. Well, part of it is that you want to know what you don't want so that you know what you do want. But really, you sort of get carried away in that, don't you? So?
It's funny because my hotel room was about an hour away, and on that drive I was removed from it. So I was in nature, which we've had tons of conversations about this before, about being in nature. And I was driving on the highway, and I missed the exit on Waze, and I was in traffic moving, and the next thing you know, in front of me was a a blue semi-truck with the sequence 456 on it, and in between the 4 and the 5 was L. My grandfather's name was Les. He owned a trucking company, and his favorite color was blue. So in the moments of receiving, like you were saying, and not being there, it's all the time.
And so here's a question, a big question. And this is the question that if we were standing in your physical shoes, in every single moment or experience where we experience something less than what we think we want, and we are in that place, talking about you, where you are prone to blame yourself, I'm not a good creator, or that shouldn't have happened to me. If you will instead ask, since things are always working out for me, what is it that I am now able to see that is beneficial to my experience? Because sometimes we've been talking about how here's this vibrational reality, and we call it this vibrational reality that we have given a name, the vortex. Wrote 2 books about it because we want so much for you to accept its existence, its realness. And in this vibrational reality is the expanded version of you. It's the vibrational version of you that you're in the process of allowing yourself to become. So it includes all of the things you want and the experiences you want and the relationships you want. It is where your inner being dwells. In other words, it is the best version of you that you have created so far. And it is a constant in the universe, and it is beaming a signal, and the law of attraction is responding to it. That's why cooperative components are being gathered, and that's why it continues to expand. And so as it expands, it is real and it is accessible by you. But you got to be in the vibrational frequency where it is, which means if you're worried about something, then you don't have access to it. If you're hateful about something, you don't have access to it. You got to be in the vibrational vicinity. We've been demonstrating that by acknowledging that this is this very high, pure vibration, meaning no resistance. And that, for example, when you meditate and allow your resistant thoughts to subside, that your vibration naturally rises. And now, because of the vibrational equivalency between you and your thoughts right now and what's in your vortex, these thoughts can come through that now thought pathway, path of least resistance, just like water flowing downhill. You can receive those thoughts. As you receive those thoughts and feel the positive emotion, Esther will sit to meditate for 15 or 20 minutes, and often, not every time, but often, as she's coming back into her full Esther awareness, an idea will occur to her or an impulse to do something. And so when that impulse comes and she follows it, she knows for sure that it was an idea that was born in the vortex and held as an idea and transmitted as an idea that she then was in the receiving mode of. Sometimes you're in that receiving mode and you don't even know you are. And your thought was, I missed my turn. I didn't take the right exit, when that may not be at all what happened, as in what you've just described. You may have been very well inspired to take a path of even lesser resistance, a path where you could think about someone who's thinking about you. Doesn't that feel logical to you? Doesn't it seem logical that those dearly departed that are not so departed at all, who are vibrationally around, who are aware of you, would be aware of you and where you are, and would be carving out a pathway of a way that they could rendezvous with you, a way that you could come into vibrational awareness with them? And so when you're driving, you're often in that receiving mode. And so in the receptive mode, you followed the impulse, and as you followed that impulse, there you had a manifestation that gave you evidence of. Are you following this? There's a new exit at Esther's exit where she lives in Texas. They're redoing the interstate, lots of changes, and they moved the exit from where it is to way back. And every day Esther drives right past it. Well, that's not exactly the inspiration that we're talking about. You can tell the difference.
Absolutely.